What's going on, guys? Hey, listen. Unlike every episode in the past, this one is brand new. And it's brand new because we're talking about a new fragrance, but more importantly, we have a new intro. Strap up. All right, welcome to the scent bubble. We've got modifications, we've got new stuff coming to the channel, and I'm excited to share it with you, quite honestly. We're just testing this out, but if it all works out, I'm going to keep running them. We've got our new sound effects here.
Perfect. Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
We've got a ton of different sound effects that mean different things. You know, when I think a fragrance is fire, I've got a sound effect. When I've got something that I say that's pause-worthy, we have a sound effect. When I think something blew it out of the water, we got sound effects for that. We just got a ton of different stuff that we're adding to the channel, including a new intro. I'm hoping, you know, for those of you who don't know, I have a background in music. I'm a hip-hop artist and I'm an audio engineer. And I want to create several different scent bubble intros to kind of mix it up. And so we're going to transition to this intro for now, see how you guys like it, and then continue to mix it up. Fragrance today that we're going to be talking about is from the house of Initio, and it is Atomic Rose. I have about a 3 ml decant of it. And to be quite honest, I should probably own a bottle of this. I'm quite surprised that out of all the fragrances from Initio, this is one that did really gravitate to me, even more than Side Effect. I didn't like the boozy kind of element of Side Effect. It just wasn't really my tea, to be honest. But some of the fragrances that I really loved was obviously Oud for Greatness, Musk Therapy, and then Atomic Rose. Even Paragon didn't really appeal to me as much, but Atomic Rose is really nice. We're going to do an initial thoughts real quick, and I might include some sound effects this episode. And yeah, we'll go from there. Typical scent bubble initial thoughts. I have had a couple wearings with this, so this isn't just a test strip test. You know, for those of you who hate fragrance reviewers who simply review decants and things like that, I have had several days with this fragrance, and I've had several encounters with this fragrance at Neiman's. I just finally pulled the trigger on getting the lady to actually give me a decant to take home so that I could further wear it, make some comparisons to the, you know, the more popular clones out there, and to tell you if this fragrance is worth buying. So, what are we dealing with here? Obviously, the fragrance is called Atomic Rose, so we're dealing with rose. It feels like a rose medley. There's both a fresh rose water lightness to it, and there is also a pungency to it. This is not a jammy rose or an oily rose. This is just very dense rose water, and it feels like the rose water was made up of a few different types of rose. There's freshness, there's soft spiciness to it, not necessarily a bite or spice, but there's just something that feels very elemental to this. It's not just all soft. It's got some edges to it, and it's also warm, very warm, ambery, especially when it goes on skin. It just warms up quite a bit. But this rose is very special to me because I'm familiar with powdery rose. I'm familiar with oudy rose. I'm familiar with jammy rose. But this is probably the freshest rose I've smelt. But normally when I would smell a very fresh rose, it's a very light rose. And this rose is still heavy, but there's massive amounts of kind of vanillic freshness and airiness to this rose medley. But essentially it is almost entirely rose with kind of warm amber vibes and some rough edges to kind of add to the photorealism of it so that it's not just kind of sweet, soft, slight powdery rose. Let's go ahead and switch screens here. Now, this composition, top notes has pink pepper and bergamot. To be quite honest, I don't get very much bergamot or pink pepper, but maybe the pepper is what's supplying kind of the slightly rough edges to this. Bulgarian and Turkish rose here leading the fray for the rose medley. So it is a rose medley. Egyptian jasmine. I love that addition. Perhaps it's contributing to, and hold on a second. Once again, where is my webcam? I apologize, guys. For some reason, my webcam is not on the screen, but that's okay. We're just going to roll with it. I'll fix it next episode. But yeah, so we do have a rose medley. Perhaps that jasmine is contributing to just the fresh airiness of the rose so that it doesn't come off too jammy or thick. And then we've got in the base that amber I was referring to and some Madagascar vanilla. Believe it or not, this fragrance isn't vanillic. In the same way that you try fragrances like Jean Paul Gaultier and things like that, where you can distinctly make out a vanilla note, even something like Angel Share or something like Lattafa's Assad. I'm really jumping around here. Even like Grand Soir, distinct vanilla and amber, it's not working in the same style as any of those fragrances. The vanilla is simply, I think, adding to the projection and density of the rose medley so that it's not coming across overly light. This is a great performing rose, 8 to 10 hours plus, and it's a great combination. Okay, let's go to main screen. Let's go to usual suspects here. I've already tested this on skin, and what you get on the test strip is pretty much exactly what you get on skin, except for you get kind of a more ramped up ambery warmth to the fragrance, but that's about it. It's essentially rose medley, freshness from white florals, slight edginess maybe from the pepper, but it's still fresh, it's still soft sweet, but it's got some soft edginess to it that feels more earthy or complex. And then you've got that vanilla projecting the rose, but not really coming across vanillic. And then the amber making it more warm. Okay. I think a fragrance like this sits perfectly unisex. In fact, I think in some ways, due to the heavy amber and pepper accord, I think it feels like a fragrance that, unlike a unisex fragrance that definitely feels unisex, this feels like on a man, it would feel different in terms of vibe. And then on a woman, it would feel more feminine. So it has flexibility in its composition to me. I think this is any season, any reason. Now, obviously, this feels like a fall and winter cold weather fragrance in terms of where it gets its best performance to the nose. But I do think as long as it's not blazing hot outside, decent sunny day, you can absolutely rock this. But this is indoors, this is nightlife, and this is cold weather. I think age-wise, for women, it can go ageless. For men, I would say for men, it could probably start at about 25 and then work its way up. It's really a preference fragrance because it is so rose dominant. It's a character type of fragrance. It either fits you or it's not your tea. So I definitely recommend getting a test and sample of this fragrance. And do me a favor, guys. When you think about this DNA, don't go to the clones first. Go to the real fragrance first because it is substantially, not substantial, but substantial enough in its differences, in its quality to a lot of the clones. I'm going to mention one today at the very end of the episode. But yeah, try the real thing before you try the other fragrances because there's something going on here with the realness of the rose, the composition, the quality, the longevity that I think is above par to a lot of the clones that are out there, even though I think there are some valid clones. Sprays on this, I'm going typically 4 to 6. If I'm outdoors a lot, I might ramp it up to 5 or 6. If I'm just going to be indoors for the most part, it's like an occasion or an event or somewhere I'm going, I'll stay at around 4. 2 in the front, 2 in the back, call it a day. It wears on clothes well, so you don't really have to make a distinction between skin or clothes. And yeah, occasions, like I said, nightlife, cold weather, indoors, events. I think it sits somewhere between upscale casual and semi-formal. I don't think it's a formal fragrance. And yeah, it's a good fragrance. I would call this probably about somewhere between an 8 or a 9. I think the person would make this a 9 fragrance, and in general, it's an 8. It's well above average, solid above average fragrance as far as DNA is concerned. And the character will play into how upscale and beautiful this fragrance is. So I think it can even go up to a 9 in most cases. So as far as the spray test, it is an absolute
Perfect.
to me. Not a perfect 10, but perfect enough for me to recommend it. Now let's talk clones real quick, and then we'll get out of here. A popular clone that gets mentioned a lot is Lattafa's Body Al Oud Amethyst. And for good reason. This is a high quality clone. It doesn't smell synthetic, and it is a rose puddle. However, where this differs from something like Atomic Rose is it's more jammy. It feels more like a jelly or a highly concentrated oil, whereas Atomic Rose feels more like a heavily dense rose water. It has extra freshness to it and a little extra dimension. This kind of stays at jammy rose and even is tinged slightly Middle Eastern, not in terms of spices, but I guess in terms of the density of the composition. The DNA just leans a little Middle Eastern to me, which isn't a bad thing. It's just different, and it's important to recognize. But it's still, I would say, probably at least 80% close to Atomic Rose. And depending how you dress it up or dress it down, it could probably creep into the 8.5 to 9 out of 10 category. But again, it's less fresh and more dense, heavy, thick, which I think adds to the performance of this, because I typically can't go past 2 sprays of this, but it is a very good clone. But I think you have to put respect on Initio's name for what they've done with their fragrance. They've added a little bit more complexity in the background, a little bit more warmth in the amber, and a little bit more freshness while still maintaining a powerful beast mode-ness to the fragrance. It's not nuclear, but it is at least 8 or 9% or 8 or 9 out of 10 in terms of power, projection, sillage, and longevity. Let me know if you guys have had this fragrance in the comments, or if you've messed with it at all. I know a lot of people are familiar with amethyst, and in fact, I personally don't wear amethyst a lot, but now that I've smelled Atomic Rose, I know what I want to do with something like amethyst. I want to freshen it up and make it more airy and give it a lighter quality to it to be able to wear it. I typically don't favor a jammy rose. I favor a dense rose, but not jam. I prefer powder, soft floral touch to it. Exactly how a rose feels when you smell it, just a little bit more dense for the sake of cologne purposes. So I'm going to definitely look into a fragrance that would layer to this well, perhaps something like Amir Celestial, or perhaps Ganymede, perhaps Oud Wood, or perhaps just a very light white floral based fragrance, or like a linen or something like that, to kind of duff off some of that rose. Again, I give this fragrance about an 8 or a 9 out of 10, depending on who's wearing it. And it's a banger. So for that, we're going to give it 1 gunshot salute. And this was Initio's Atomic Rose, and it was a great fragrance. Like, comment, and subscribe. More importantly, turn on that notification bell so you can be hip to all of the content that we post nearly on a daily basis. And until next time, you guys be blessed. This is the Scent Bubble signing off.